There are different types of daily races in Gran Turismo, and each type involves a certain skill that you need to master. But this one in particular involves a lot of teamwork, where slipstream and bump drafting are the key to success. I found myself racing against my sim racing coach, who taught me a lot of the stuff that have made me into the driver that I am today. But I also had to worry about two former Gran Turismo World Series champions. It was not going to be easy at any point, and focus had to be at its maximum level. So let me show you how that race ended up. Let's go to the track. So here we are then, here's the grid for this race, and you'll immediately be able to spot Paulov and OCT, or Josete, which is also Paul Ura and Jose Serrano, two former World Series champions of Gran Turismo. And I have my coach Luke Nodaro right in front of me, starting on pole position while I start on P2 in this daily race C, which is at Watkins Glen short course on racing hard tires and Group 4 cars with one minimum pit stop to do. So essentially the idea here is that you want to stay in a pack of cars that are going with a fast pace and are using slipstream and bump drafting to climb positions up the grid, and avoiding unnecessary battles at all costs, because that will only just harm your chances of getting a good result in this race. We're going for the first time on the bus stop chicane of Watkins Glen, which is a very famous corner, and at this particular moment you'll be able to spot that myself, Luke, and the driver right behind me called Gigi, we are gonna be working together straight off the bat throughout the start of this race. Pretty much we were aware that this is the best strategy to execute at the start of the race, but also having in mind that you have very fast drivers at the back of the grid, like the two former world champions that I've already mentioned, plus a couple more. So we're about to complete our first lap of the race, and this is where it's gonna put us at a good start when we start with a 21.2 for Luke and just 3/10 behind for me. But here's going to be the first mistake that Luke is going to make, and we'll see that he's going to go beyond the track limits, and he's going to earn himself his first and probably only half a second penalty for the start of this race. Now, at this point, it's still not worth trying to make a move, and I almost ended up hitting the wall trying to go through that straight path, although with the help of Gigi, I'm able to get back in track. And when we go back to the bus stop chicane, we're just going to try to take it as smooth and clean as possible. I almost ended up cutting that first apex, but I was able to slow down enough so that it didn't count as a track limit penalty while my internet is acting up at this moment. So my internet provider, you know who you are, get your stuff sorted out, please. I hate having lags in the races. So Luke is going to serve his penalty, and that was going to put me in the lead for the race and setting up the pace. Now, I typically don't like having to set the lead of a race or the pace of a race, because I am aware that I am not particularly the most consistent yet at having a good fast pace without having to push too hard and making a mistake. But in this case, at Watkins Glen, I feel pretty comfortable at driving this track, and I'm pretty sure that I'm able to keep up, and obviously also with the help of Gigi and Luke behind me. So we're gonna speed this part of the race on lap 3 while we head back into the bus stop chicane, and we are gonna try to take it as close to the wall as possible, still keeping a good gap and distance. And here's the difference between the NSX, which is the car that I am driving, versus the Mazda, which is the car that Gigi is driving, and it's very limited on the cornering. So that allows me to have more agility entering and exiting the bus stop, while he struggles a little bit more, and that's why I gap a little bit from that point. However, now the mistake was going to be in my hands, where I completely understeer at the last corner of the lap, and I ended up hitting the wall to my left hand side. So that's going to allow Gigi and Luke to jump back in front, and now Gigi is going to be the one leading the race, while very cleanly Luke and I switch positions behind him. And this is going to maintain to be the trend of this race for the three of us leading the pack, and it's just working together until we know that we are going to secure that podium for the three of us. And then at that point in the last lap, or maybe 2 laps before the race ends, we can start battling for how the order of those positions are going to go. Now, if you notice the grid order, Serrano is already placing himself in 4th place, just over 4 seconds behind me. And here, Luke and Gigi are gonna go side by side, and I end up bump drafting Luke so that he can go on the outside of the last 2 corners of the lap and retake the lead. I actually didn't know whether this was gonna be a good idea, but then after speaking to Luke after the race ended, he actually wanted me to bump draft him so that he could make the outside move. So it ended up being a smart way of going around it. Start of lap 5 then, we have Luke leading the pack, Gigi in 2nd, and then myself just right behind the 2. And I think this is probably the ideal way of going about it with these 3 cars, given the fact that Luke and I are on the NSX. The Mazda has a lot more top end speed, so while he bump drafts Luke, I get more slipstream. But also, Ossetti or Serrano and Haydar right behind him are working together to try to catch up to us. And they have a little bit of a faster pace at this point in time, so the worry was in there about whether they would catch up to the 3 of us or not. So we had to keep pushing, we had to keep going and keep working together. Although the cornering, again, from the NSX plays a part right here where I'm able to make this move from Gigi and I'm able to retake 2nd place, well, you'll see in a little second, while Haydar actually struggles getting into the bus stop, cuts the first apex way too much and earns himself a 1.5 second penalty, which I think is quite aggressive and quite punishing. But that's the story of the race. So now Luke gives me the slipstream while I secure my 2nd place move, and now we resume the race in the same order as we started it. And we're about to start lap 6, which this fast lap is going to be my best lap so far of the race with a 15.4. And we keep going at this point, and if by this point you are enjoying the race and you're enjoying what you're looking at, please make sure to subscribe, click that like button as well. It really helps the channel grow. So here we are then, about to finish lap 6, improving ever so slightly on the pace. However, Luke is going to have a little bit of a wider line right here, and I'm going to have to readjust my brakes so that I don't end up hitting him and lose us some time. But nothing too crazy. We keep pushing ahead and we keep going up to the lead of the race, and we are still pretty much over around the same pace as we set up on the previous lap. So here we're gonna have this mistake on my behalf where the car is gonna bounce way too much on the entry of the bus stop. That is gonna allow Gigi to put the outside move on the exit of the bus stop and retake 2nd place himself. Haydar, on the other hand, though, he's gonna have a bigger struggle to deal with as he hits the barrier on the entry of the bus stop, ends up cutting the grass, loses 1 place. Another place is gonna be lost by on his left, and on top of that, another 1.5 second penalty, while a 3rd place now is lost for him. So definitely not what he wanted out of this race, in particular halfway through it. So Gigi sets himself into 2nd place one more time, and this is kind of the beauty of the teamwork sometimes, where you're still able to keep the pace with fast drivers. Even though you switch positions, people keep working alongside and no one tries to just hold into a position themselves, because the important bit is to get to the end of the race while you already know that the minimum result that you're going to secure is going to be a good one. In the case of us 3, a podium at the very minimum, barring no bigger mistakes or no bigger penalties to deal with. So here we are then, crossing the bus stop one more time, going into the exit, rounding that right-hander that is very punishing on the left side of the car. But at least the tire temperatures for me are regulating ever so slightly, where they are now sitting under 90 degrees Celsius, which is where you want to have them to perform at its optimal range. Little bit of a bump right here to Gigi on the exit of this corner, and I was scared that I was going to put him into the wall or make him cross that white line and earn himself a penalty. That would have been destroying our races if I had done so. So now Serrano had already pitted by this point in the race, and as you can see from the delta, he's just shy of 24 seconds of difference. What you want to have between the pit delta is about 20 seconds, so I knew that our pace was good enough to keep him at bay. Now, I struggle one more time on the bus stop, and now I'm losing a little bit of time from the front of the pack with Luke and Gigi right in front. But what you're gonna notice now is the difference between the two cars that myself and Gigi are driving. The Mazda has a lot of straight line speed, not so much cornering, and it really struggles keeping the tires alive in this particular race. As you can notice, his front left tire is way past the halfway point of its tire lifespan, whilst my tires are pretty much intact by this point in the race. So that is going to give me a big advantage by the closing point of the race. Start of lap 11 then about to come into play, and Luke is now just 1.5 seconds away from me, while Gigi is about 4/10. So that means that between Luke and Gigi there's about a second. The good thing about Watkins Glen is even with a second, you still have a little bit of slipstream that you can take advantage from because it's so long and fast flowing. But in this case, here's where the tire difference is going to play in my favor, where Gigi is going to struggle to keep the rotation on this big right-hander while I keep a much tighter line on the inside, and I am able to place myself back in second place with Luke now in front of me, just shy of 1.2 seconds. So now my objective right here was to push as hard as I could to see if I could catch up to Luke, get back into a stronger slipstream, whilst also pulling myself away from Gigi and secure ourselves a 1-2. So here we are then, just about to hit a second, as you can see from the delta, entering turn 1, which is a very important corner to hit right on the exit so that you can build a lot of speed into this long straight right before the bus stop. And now we have snuck into that 1 second gap or less. So now the race was on between Luke and myself, coach and student, master and apprentice, while I speed up the end of lap 12, just about to start lap 13. Gap is just under 0.8 of a second, while the gap from Gigi is now over 1.1 seconds. So that is pretty much securing a 1-2 for the Digit Racing team, the DG drivers in this race. Fast forward again through lap 13 and about to end this lap, whilst the gap is shrinking under 0.6 now, and the gap with Gigi is increasing just above 1.9 seconds. And here's where I almost got very confused, because Luke decides to go into the pits and I end up reacting at last second to follow him through. No pit lane cutting, so we are all good in this moment, and we come out into the track on lap 14 with Gigi now 2.3 seconds away. So now it's a two-man battle until the end, and once again coach and student going all the way down, keeping ourselves away from two former world champions and giving us that incredible team effort, whilst it's now converting into a two-man battle. So here we have another entry into the bus stop, and I know that at this point I need to push as hard as I can, because I need to make the best use of the slipstream if I want to have a shot at making that last move into the last lap, so that I can retake the lead one more time. And here we have the start of that final lap. Turn 1, once again we get almost the exact same type of exit, and now the slipstream is going to help us cut it down to just about half a second. Bus stop one more time, trying to cut it as clean as possible, but Luke has the advantage on that particular one, whilst the gap from Serrano is just under 5 seconds, which essentially locks us into a 1-2 DG result. And the smile on my face says it all, while I'm able to share this experience with my coach. And even though I wasn't able to beat him in this particular one, it's always nice to keep him at bay and to keep the pace with him. And here we have the final weavings of this race, whilst he ends up with the win and I secure P2. If you've enjoyed this race, please make sure to check another racing video that I have for you right here on the screen. Take care. See you in the next one.